You are walking up the dirt driveway of a secluded farmhouse in Osprey, Florida. It's December 19, 1959. The air is uncharacteristically cool, smelling of salt from the nearby Gulf and the scent of pine from the Christmas tree visible through the front window. Under that tree sit wrapped gifts, toys for a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old who will never get to open them. You step onto the porch and the silence is deafening. Inside, the house is a tomb. In the living room, you find Cliff Walker, 25, sprawled on the floor, the victim of a brutal ambush. But the true horror lies further in. His wife, Christine, lies nearby. She has been raped and shot. Your heart sinks as you find the children. 3-year-old Jimmy has been executed. In the bathroom, 1-year-old Debbie lies in the bathtub, shot, then held underwater until the life left her tiny lungs. There is no sign of a struggle from the children. They were small, helpless, and met with a level of depravity that defies human comprehension. On the edge of the tub, a single bloody fingerprint rests on the faucet handle, a silent, taunting signature from a monster who vanished into the Florida heat. When the bodies were discovered the following day, the scene was a patchwork of contradictions. The Walker family were well-liked, hardworking people with no known enemies. Yet, the crime was personal, tactile, and incredibly violent. Detectives found 3 primary pieces of physical evidence. 1. A bloody cowboy boot print. 2. A cellophane strip from a cool cigarette wrapper. 3. The fingerprint on the bathtub faucet. Despite these leads, the trail went cold almost immediately. Over 587 suspects were eventually cleared. There was a brief moment of hope when a serial killer named Emmett Monroe Spencer confessed, but he was later outed as a pathological liar who had memorized details of the crime from detective magazines. The case sat gathering dust for decades until the world's most famous true crime book, In Cold Blood, inadvertently provided a new lead. In 2012, interest in the case surged when investigators revisited the movements of Richard, Dick, Hickock and Perry Smith. Just 34 days before the Walker murders, these 2 men had slaughtered the Clutter family in Holcomb, Kansas, a crime immortalized by Truman Capote. The similarities were chilling. The timing. Hickock and Smith were in Florida at the time, driving a stolen 1956 Chevrolet Bel Air. The M.O. Both cases involved the mass murder of a family in a rural home, including the killing of children. The proximity. The duo checked out of a Miami motel the morning of the murders and were spotted in a Sarasota department store, just miles from the Walker home, that same day. The Walkers had actually been looking to buy a 1956 Chevy Bel Air, leading many to believe the killers gained entry by pretending to sell the very car they had stolen after the Clutter murders. In a dramatic move in 2012, the bodies of Hickock and Smith were exhumed to compare their DNA to the semen found on Christine Walker's clothing. However, the results were inconclusive due to the degradation of the 50-year-old samples. They remain the most viable suspects, yet the case stays officially unsolved. The mystery took another turn in 2023. New investigators utilized advanced DNA testing on a stain found on Christine's underwear. They identified a mixture of DNA from 1 male and 1 female. This led to the exhumation of the Walker family victims themselves to help separate the family's genetic profiles from the killers. A new name emerged: William Tooker, a neighbor with a known interest in Christine. While he hasn't been definitively named the killer, he has not been ruled out as a contributor to the DNA mixture found at the scene. To understand who killed the Walkers, we have to look at the organized versus disorganized nature of the crime scene. The power reassurance element. The rape of Christine Walker suggests a killer motivated by a need for dominance and sexual control. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. The primary objective was the violation of the mother. Asterisk overkill and the children. The decision to kill the children, specifically the drowning of baby Debbie, indicates a killer who viewed the victims as objects rather than people. In behavioral science, drowning a victim after shooting them is often a sign of overkill, which can suggest a high level of emotional agitation or a signature need to ensure total extinction of the victims. The alibi fallacy. If it was Hickock and Smith, we see a pattern of spree-like escalation. Having already crossed the line, in Kansas, the psychological barrier to killing again was gone. However, many profilers, including Catherine Ramsland, argue the theft of the Walker's marriage certificate, which later resurfaced among relatives, suggests a killer who had a personal, perhaps obsessive, connection to the family. The neighbor theory. If the killer was a neighbor like Tooker, the crime represents displaced aggression. A killer who lives nearby often harbors a long-standing resentment or fixation. The brutality of the scene. The blitz attack on Cliff, followed by the systemic execution of the family, suggests a predator who had likely rehearsed this scenario in his mind many times before stepping onto that porch.